This 1 Degree Outside video is brought to you by CrackX Foundation Crack Repair and Waterproofing. 40 years of prompt and economical service to New England homeowners, builders, general contractors, home inspectors, management companies, architects, and engineers. Be sure to visit crackx.com and mention 1 Degree Outside when you make your appointment for an incredible discount. Weekend Insights recorded on a Friday here at 1 Degree Outside Weather Network, but designed to last you through the weekend. Meteorologist Matt Noyes, lots to talk about in this video. We'll be talking about a wintry weekend in northern New England. While it's a summer preview in some parts of far southern New England, crazy difference. It is a thrill to forecast for all 6 states. I think you're going to, if you like weather, you're going to like this video. Most of us are in between, and we'll talk about that. It's messy weather this weekend, but it's not big wind. A lot of times, if you're right on the battle of air, you don't get a lot of wind, but you get a mess instead. And we can see that battle setting up already, a warm front extending out from an area of low pressure over Minnesota. There has been moisture pluming out of the Gulf. It's been causing flooding rains down in Texas. We're not into that moisture at this point. What we're talking about is a battle of air, and that battle of air can be enough to touch off precipitation as it is. And that pretty much is what happens this weekend. We end up with a frontal boundary very close to us. There is input of Gulf moisture that comes into play. We don't really hear from that until we get Monday into Tuesday, and by then it's mostly warm enough for rain. So a lot of the mess this weekend is just because of the battle zone of air. And you can see huge area in the eastern two-thirds of the country in 70s and 80s for high temperatures, but not here in New England. And this is something we talked about in the monthly forecast at the start of March. We talked about it in pattern predictions along the way, that the cold air in Canada was going to hold firm, and it is. And a lot of times here in New England in the spring, we're still kind of vulnerable to that cold air, and certainly this weekend is a great example. Look at the high temperatures by Sunday. I mean, you can see that warmth that's shooting up the eastern seaboard, but not making it here at home. Next 48 hours then, yep, you've got the Gulf input down to the south with the moisture, but right here at home, we're going to start to crank our own precipitation out from that clash of air that sets up. I can extend even a little bit beyond 48 hours and just say, what's the precipitation over the course of the weekend? Now, this would be if you take the snow and the ice and the rain, you put it all together, melt it down, right? You come up to over an inch of precipitation in some parts of northern New England. That's why there's such a messy potential in the north. Now, the farther south you come, it's more raindrops and you're close to half an inch, so it's not as messy. It'll be more like a chilly rain in a lot of southern New England. Let's get into it. Overnight tonight, we'll look for the development of rain in southern New England, showers anyway. And tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., timestamp in the upper left, it is snowing. From Portland, Maine to Burlington, Vermont, points northward, you got snow coming down. The pink is going to be sleet, and then some freezing rain that comes into play. Now, that's at 7 in the morning. You've still got the rain coming down Boston through northern Mass. Let me go out to noon. A lot of the showers in southern New England, including the Boston area, I'm not going to say they're going to totally go away. There'll be a couple from time to time, but there's not a lot of rain that comes down during your Saturday. It's not real pretty in these areas. There's the warmer air coming into Connecticut. We'll look at the temperatures in a minute. Some of you, though, will jump into the 70s, believe it or not, while the snow is still flying at Lewiston, at Auburn, Maine, at midday tomorrow. Again, a lot of us in much of central New England, even up to the Mount Washington Valley, go over to a sleet and a light freezing rain. You can see the holes in it too. So it's not super heavy during the day Saturday, but here's the crazy part. The warmth actually loses ground late Saturday, like even later in the afternoon. This front really should be drawn in as a cold front. As it reverses direction, the cold begins to press southward again, and this locks in what will be sleet and freezing rain as another pulse of moisture comes in. You can see here Saturday evening. Now, in southern New England, it is raindrops. The downpours may mix in again as we get into Saturday evening and night, all right? But it should stay raindrops maybe in the higher terrain around Worcester, around Paxton, around some of the Route 2 corridor. You might be able to flex the cold just enough to go over to a little bit of freezing rain for a time Saturday evening and overnight Saturday night. So you might need a little treatment here. The farther north you go, you just got to remember that during the day, the sun angle is so strong this time of year that a lot of the roads, even with a slight treatment, are going to be great. It's at night where you get the problems. And then admittedly, when you get off the beaten path and you're off any amount of treatment in some of the mountain passes, that's going to be a mess even throughout Saturday night. So the sun doesn't have as good of an effect for you. But notice on Sunday itself, yes, you've got showers that'll be around, particularly in the morning from the Mass Turnpike northward. They may wane a little bit the deeper into Sunday morning, like late morning into the afternoon that we go. And then the farther north you go, there's still some sleet, some light freezing rain that'll be around during Sunday. But we do still think, and we mentioned this yesterday, that warmer air probably tips the scale just enough to get above the melting point in a lot of northern New England by Sunday afternoon, so that it wouldn't be that big of a wintry deal anymore at that point. And from that point on, the warmth just keeps winning. There's showers that'll be around on Monday. There's downpours fueled by that Gulf moisture that comes through Monday night. And then by Tuesday, it's gone and the sun comes back out. But that's a lot of days of messy weather between now and when it turns nice again on Tuesday. So how much snow do you get? look, this is going to be a little bit pliable, a little bit flexible, and the reason for that is because of the strong sun angle this time of the year. We actually don't think it'll be this broad. If you line this up with the legend, that would be like a 4-inch zone all the way across Augusta, Lewiston, Waterville. Not sure you're going to get a broad 4 inches. Think it's probably going to be a variable one, and the reason for that is going to be elevation dependent. And also because, again, when you get down to the valleys, the temperature may be a little bit milder and cross that freezing point for a time. The farther north and west you go, though, the more you can see the purples mixing in. That would line up to 8-inch snow. We do think that's quite believable across the summits and high terrain of the North Country. There is going to be a sharp line as you come farther south because you get more sleet and freezing rain mixing in, and that's why we don't have a lot of snow forecast for the Lakes region. Admittedly, if this axis ends up farther south, oops, we end up having to raise that up, but we at this point don't see that as being the likely scenario. I think the likely scenario is you get more sleet and freezing rain that mixes in. It's not a small deal on the sleet and freezing rain. Again, one thing that helps you is the sun angle, because that does warm a lot of surfaces, not just the roads. But having said that, the temperature is going to be down below freezing. When the cold kind of flexes its muscle, it turns colder on Saturday late day and evening in a lot of these areas. So a third of an inch of ice is possible on the eastern slopes of the Greens and some of the higher terrain of western and southwestern New Hampshire, and some amount of icing that goes all the way up into Portland, because you get that snow in the first part of Saturday, and then you probably go over to some sleet and freezing rain. Again, limited impact on the roads, perhaps, maybe more icing that happens on some colder surfaces and things of that nature, particularly Saturday night when you lose any impact of the sun. You can see that tonight we've got temperatures that drop below freezing north of Rutland to about Laconia to about Portland, Maine. Now that cold air wants to hold firm on Saturday. Take a look. The temperatures don't go far from the Lakes region, even into southern Maine. And that's part of the problem here. The farther south you come, my goodness, there's that summer preview, right? 74 in Danbury, 74 in Stamford, 76 in Poughkeepsie, into the 70s in Binghamton. It is a crazy battle of air that's going on. Saturday night, remember I told you the cold air flexes. You might get some of that ice trying to come down onto some of the Route 2 corridor of north central Mass. You might even get in the hills just northwest of Worcester. Probably not in Worcester itself, not in Boston, not in a lot of eastern Mass. The farther north you go, you do get some of that icing Saturday night as you lose the effect of the sun. Sunday, expect to find temperatures not really going far, but again, we looked at the fact that there won't be a ton of rain in southern New England on Sunday, and by the time we get to Sunday night, you likely stay above freezing for all but the North Country. Getting into Monday, the warmth wins. The showers and downpours start to come into play more. It rains heavily Monday night, and then Tuesday, it's gone. It's drier, but it is cooler on Tuesday, around 50. It's like a bouncing ball you got to follow this weekend, right? Our hourly forecast is going to be awesome for you in our app. Noyes is 1 degree outside weather. It's free in the App Store and Google Play. If you do the radar to follow kind of the snow and mix and rain and all that, I would always recommend at the bottom of that radar page, you do past plus future. Does a great job with the next few hours of where things are going, and it shows you where things have been. So anyway, that's it for now. We will update you as needed. If anything big changes, you're going to hear from us. We always have our Saturday morning update as well. You'll always find it all at onedegreeoutside.com, atop the home screen of our app, and on our social media feeds, the number 1 degree outside.